All right, circling back to our top story, which is the transnational crime in Southeast Asia that has expanded aggressively in the region and beyond, with groups raking in profits through drug trade, human and wildlife trafficking, as well as counterfeit goods. This is according to a new report by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, or UNODC. And the top problem identified is drug trafficking. And for more, we're speaking to Inshik Sim, Research Officer at the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. He joins us from our Bangkok studio now. Inshik, thanks for joining me. First up, can you give us a sense of just how much transnational crime has grown over the past few years in Southeast Asia?
Yes, thank you, Glenda, for having UNODC today. Yes, over the last 5 years, the organized crime group in Southeast Asia have grown massively. For instance, the drug profits they make out of producing and trafficking methamphetamine, for instance, grown over 4 times over the just last 5 years. So it now reached over 60 billion US dollars being generated by transnational crime group by producing methamphetamines and trafficking of the drug.
You mentioned methamphetamine. Why is there such a huge growth, especially in this particular drug, meth?
There are a few reasons for that. First, Asia is a center for global chemical production. Because of that, the transnational crime groups been capitalizing the available chemicals in the regions. Despite of the regulatory regime in place in Asia, transnational crime groups find a way to source these chemicals and to manufacture methamphetamine in Asia. And second, there has been a displacement of organized crime group to northern part of Myanmar, largely known as the Golden Triangle. This area has been politically contested area, and the Myanmar government has limited access. And this organized crime group's been exploiting that area to produce massive amount of methamphetamines. And they have been, in fact, they've been engineered to expand the meth market by producing a significant amount of drug that we have never seen in the past.
You mentioned that to expand the meth market, the value, you also said earlier, for the drug is estimated to be up to $60 billion a year. But what about the number of people who are actually consuming meth? Has that number as well grown?
Yes, the number has been grown in several countries. For instance, we see that, first of all, in several countries in the regions, do not have drug use surveys. So what it means that the number of people who are arrested for drug use been increasing in several countries. For instance, in Mekong countries, we see the rise of meth users arrested for meth use. And also in neighboring countries also reported the same trend to UNODC.
I want to pick up on what you mentioned there about the Golden Triangle. There are drug cartels, and according to the UNODC report here, it says that they are mainly based in Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and Thailand.
Yes, there are transnational crime groups composed of several nationalities. We know there are groups that in the past operating mainly in the part of China, and they migrated to the part of northern Myanmar, and they've been able to manufacture methamphetamines as they used to do in China. But because of the Chinese government's cracking down on these groups, they moved to Myanmar, and they continuously source these precursor chemicals and manufacture methamphetamine, yes.
Okay, so if you've managed to isolate these drug cartels in Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and Thailand, how can governments then improve their border security to actually clamp down on these transnational crime?
The country cannot seal the border physically, but however, they can improve cooperation across borders. Joint operations or intelligence sharings are a good example for that. But at the same time, countries need to be able to anticipate what could happen in their country in response to their neighboring countries' response to these transnational crime groups. For instance, last year, Thailand alone seized more than half of methamphetamine seizures made in East and Southeast Asia. It shows the significant flows of methamphetamine traffic from Myanmar to northern Thailand border. But at the same time, it shows that Thailand government's kind of strong and successful campaign against these drug traffickings. So since 2019, we have witnessed the increasing amount of methamphetamine trafficked through Laos and Vietnam for subsequent trafficking to neighboring East Asia and the Pacific. So countries need to really anticipate and understand the nature of organized crime groups and how they are going to react in response to the government's action.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us today. We've been speaking to Inshik Sim, Research Officer at the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and a report out from the UNODC says that transnational crime has expanded aggressively in Southeast Asia.